What's going on, everyone? I'm Zero, and welcome back to Zero 2, where today I've got another deck profile for you. Before I jump into my Blue Eyes deck profile, I do want to give a quick PSA. I know that MBT on his Blue Eyes deck profile gave a joking one to start his, but I do think it's important to point out for those who are returning to the game or are new to the game and want to pick up the Blue Eyes cards, whether it's because you like Blue Eyes from the anime or whether you're looking to get into something competitive, which the structure deck definitely can offer you. There are two different Blue Eyes structure decks that have been released. One being the Blue Eyes White Destiny, the newest one that just came out, and one being Saga of the Blue Eyes White Dragons, which is the older version of the structure deck. Definitely look for the structure deck Blue Eyes of White Destiny. That one is going to get you the most bang for your buck in terms of modern competitive advantage. It's got a ton of the best Blue Eyes cards in it already, and you have the workings of an entire deck with just one, but ideally three copies of that structure deck. The older one, while a great product for its time, is, I think over a decade old at this point and just doesn't quite cut it in the modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Metagame. So Blue Eyes White Destiny is what you'll want to pick up. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into the actual cards in the deck profile. So we're playing Blue Eyes Primite, but we'll start with all the Blue Eyes cards. Starting off, you play two copies of the original Blue Eyes White Dragon. This card is a requirement to play the deck, which is really cool in my opinion because I'm really glad that Konami has made it such that you have to play the original Blue Eyes. It was more like you get to play the original Blue Eyes. It's super satisfying as a fan of many years to get to play the OG boss monster that a lot of us fell in love with the game through as a kid, and so playing a deck centered around it's pretty cool, and you play two of it because there are certain scenarios where you cycle through two. Two's important for the trap, which I'll get to later, and it helps with a lot of your main combos. As for the starters in the deck, we got three copies of Sage with Eyes of Blue. Sage with Eyes of Blue is a level 1 light spellcaster tuner that on normal summon gets to add a level 1 light tuner from deck to hand. It also has an in-hand effect where you can target a effect monster on the field, send it to the graveyard, and if you do special Blue Eyes White Dragon or any Blue Eyes monster, sorry, not just Blue Eyes White Dragon, but any Blue Eyes monster from your deck. Now, notably, that normal summon search is not a hard once per turn, but the effect to send it from hand to summon a Blue Eyes from deck is a hard once per turn. But it also notably doesn't search anything archetype specific. It only searches level 1 light tuners. Which allows it to search a hand trap like Effect Veiler or your other main combo starter, which we're playing three copies of, which is Maiden of White. Maiden of White is a new card that was released in the newest structure deck that just came out, and it has three very powerful effects. It's also a level 1 light tuner, so it's searchable off of the Sage. You can send it from your hand to the graveyard to place a True Light, which is the in-archetype Blue Eyes trap that I'll get to when we get there, directly from your deck, your graveyard, or your hand, straight face up in your spell and trap card zone, so you can use it immediately, even on turn 1, even though it's a trap card, which is super strong since True Light's an insanely powerful both combo starter and extender, pretty much whatever you could want. You can get off True Light, which is really awesome. Its second effect allows you to, whenever you summon a Blue Eyes to your field, specifically the original Blue Eyes, you can special summon this card back from your graveyard. Now, unlike Konami points to this on their own product description of the deck, but unlike other cards that do this, this card doesn't banish itself when it goes back to the graveyard. So it is a hard once per turn to do that, and all of the Maiden's effects are hard once per turns. But this is an insanely powerful piece of recursive advantage. It's going to stay in your graveyard, and every time on subsequent turns, you can keep summoning back Blue Eyes, summon back Maiden, make your level 9 synchros because it's a tuner. This card just does pretty much everything, and if all that wasn't good enough, it has not even better, I would say. The main two effects are its best effects, but this third effect definitely does come up as well, and is also really strong. If it's targeted by a card effect, you can special summon the card effect or battle. You can special summon either an original Blue Eyes or a level 1 light tuner from your graveyard. So that's not only targeted by your opponent's attacks and card effects, but also you can target it with your own card effects and trigger that to get an extra piece of extension on the field for free. Maiden's just an all-around crazy card. Definitely don't play any less than 3 of it. It's absolutely insane. But that's it for the Blue Eyes monsters in the main deck. We'll move on to the Blue Eyes spells and traps that we're playing. I say Blue Eyes. Blue Eyes is in quotes because a lot of the Blue Eyes cards don't actually have the actual phrasing Blue Eyes in them. They're typically like of blue or something like that, but they're all searchable via the fact that they mention Blue Eyes White Dragon, and you'll notice a lot of the support says, or a card that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon. So getting right into that, we play 3 copies of their newest spell card, Wishes for Eyes of Blue. This card says you can discard a card as cost to add a level 1 light tuner and a spell trap that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck to your hand. So this searches your 2 starters in either Maiden or Sage. It's highly searchable off of your True Light because that searches for any Blue Eyes spell or trap. So this can be searched as part of your main combo to extend your plays. It can even search Effect Veiler if you've already got all of the pieces you need in hand, so you have an extra layer of interruption for your opponent. Just an all-around super versatile card. And then additionally, its graveyard effect, which is arguably equally important, is that you can banish it from the graveyard to target a Blue Eyes White Dragon you control, and equip it with a fusion from your extra deck, specifically a Blue Eyes monster from your extra deck. That's relevant for 2 reasons. One, it allows you to summon your Tyrant Dragon, which we'll get to when we get to the extra deck. And 2, the other fusion you can equip is the Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, which again we'll get to, but at a high level, that provides you additional targeting protection for your board on a top of your main combo for free, because you can use both Wishes effects in the same turn. So it's not only an insanely powerful searcher, but it also adds another layer of protection and interruption to your board, which is super, super incredible. Exactly what the deck wants. But that's the only 3 of spell that we're playing. We're playing a couple of 1 of Blue Eyes cards, and these will be spells and traps. So I'm just going to put them all out here, and we'll talk about them in a second. So Mausoleum of White is the field spell in the deck, and is highly searchable off of their new Link one. It has a couple of relevant effects on it. The first one is during your main phase, you can normal summon a level 1 light tuner in addition to your regular normal summon. This is not an activated effect, so as long as your activation of Mausoleum has resolved and it's all face up on the field, you can just do that for free without activating anything, so that's not vulnerable to Ghost Ogre. What is vulnerable to Ghost Ogre is its second effect, which is also relevant, where once per turn you can target a face-up monster on the field that you control, send a normal monster from deck to grave, and then boost its attack and defense by 100 times that level. The attack and defense modulation is not super important, but getting a Blue Eyes into rotation from your deck into your graveyard, which is where it's way more accessible, is really, really nice to have, especially in a searchable field spell. So this card comes up in all of your mainline combos, and we'll get to the combo tutorial after I go through the whole deck profile. But definitely play 1 of this. I could even consider playing 2 of it because of how good it is. Like, it doesn't feel bad to open in hand, even though you'd like to search it off of the Link one. Like, having the guaranteed extra normal of a level 1 light tuner can sometimes be really, really important for your combos. And so having that in play feels very, very nice regardless. The other spell that we're playing is Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragons. This is a new card that was released in the newest structure deck. And it simply says special summon in defense position 1 Blue Eyes monster from your hand, deck, not from your hand, your deck, graveyard, or banishment. If you control no Blue Eyes White Dragon, you can only summon the original Blue Eyes White Dragon with this, but most of the time that's what you're summoning with this anyways. It does come up in some scenarios where you'll want to revive like your Tyrant Dragon or some other scenarios where this might be relevant, but most of the time you're just using this as an extender to put an extra Blue Eyes onto the board, whether that's to trigger your Maiden White in graveyard or just get an extra body on board for Synchro fodder or Link fodder. It's super, super impactful. It does have a graveyard effect that can be relevant, although a lot less so than its summon effect. If it's in your graveyard, you can banish it to fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field, including a Blue Eyes monster. You're locked into using only 1 of this card's effects per turn, so if you use the summon, you can't use the fuse. But turn 3 onwards, the fuse can be nice to hard make a Tyrant Dragon, especially if you've already gone through your fusion to make it. Like, this can be extremely impactful and help you close out games you might not have otherwise been able to close out. Now on to True Light, arguably one of the best cards in the deck. As we saw, highly searchable off of the Maiden, and you just get to place it face up, so you can start using its effects right away. But the first effect is not an activated effect, it's just a blanket. Your opponent cannot target Blue-Eyes White Dragons you control in the monster zone with card effects. Nice protection, doesn't come up all that often because you're not too often just leaving a Blue-Eyes on the field by itself, but it does protect your Blue-Eyes on field if you do need to leave it on field for, let's say, a Primite Drill Beam, which again we'll get to when we get there, but it can be relevant to protect that. But its more important effects are that once per turn, you can choose to either special summon a Blue-Eyes White Dragon from your hand or graveyard, so it's an extra extender, or you can set one spell trap from your deck that mentions Blue-Eyes. It just has to have a different name from cards on your field and in your graveyard, which is nice because Wishes banishes itself from graveyard, meaning that if you can search for Wishes over course of multiple turns. Like, you don't need to once you've searched for Wishes once, it's not like dead for searching for more Wishes. You can always search for Wishes later because you can banish the Wishes to equip to the Blue-Eyes. Its last effect that is important, and it's not a bonus, but rather a drawback. If True Light is ever sent from your field to the graveyard, you destroy all monsters you control. Now, that's mandatory, so protecting this thing can be paramount in a lot of scenarios. You'll need to make sure that you are not letting your opponent just pop this for free, especially while you've got a board face up. There are ways to play through it and around it, so that will come up. But yeah, True Light can leave your board vulnerable, but its benefits well outweigh the drawbacks of that one effect. And then the last Blue-Eyes card we're playing is one Majesty of the White Dragons. This is also a new card that was released in the newest structure deck, and it has two lines of text, or two effects on it that are, one's relevant, one's really not, but I'll read them both. The first one allows you to show Blue-Eyes White Dragons from your hand, face-up field, or graveyard. It's weird verbiage, but basically you just need to confirm with your opponent the number that you're showing to them, and then you may destroy cards on the field up to the number that you showed your opponent. Notably, none of that is cost, so you don't have to tell your opponent how many Blue-Eyes you're showing them. You just tell them you're activating this effect. Explain it to them in full. Don't try and cheese them with this, but it doesn't target, it just destroys, so keep that in mind. And then its second effect allows you to banish it from your graveyard to ritual summon a Blue-Eyes ritual monster, using Blue-Eyes White Dragons from your hand and or field, I believe, but we're not playing any of the rituals, so in this build it doesn't come up, but it does act as a ritual spell in graveyard, which is pretty nice. That's it for the Blue-Eyes cards, though. We're going to immediately jump in and discuss the Primite cards, because they feel extremely at home in this deck. We're playing 3 copies of Primite Dragon Aether Beryl. Most people call it either Aether Beryl or Beryl. You're on 3 copies of Lordly Load, Primite Lordly Load, and 1 copy of Primite Drill Beam. So, Primite Dragon Aether Beryl has 3 relevant effects. The first one is on normal summon, you can set 1 Primite spell or trap from your deck. You are almost always off of that going to grab your Primite Lordly Load, but I want to get through this guy's effects first before I jump into that, but it can search either Lordly Load or Drill Beam, which you do sometimes need to search Drill Beam as well if you've already used your Lordly Load. But its second effect, which you don't use very often but can come up, is you can send this card from your monster zone to the graveyard and then send 1 normal monster from your deck to the graveyard. So if you're super desperate to get a Blue-Eyes into rotation and this is just an extra body on board, this can be a way to get Blue-Eyes into rotation, but a lot of times you're using this as link material for your link 1, so you don't typically tend to use this effect. The third effect, however, does come up very often, which is that if this card is in your graveyard, and you have a normal monster on your field or graveyard, during your standby phase, you can add this back to your hand. That is a hard once per turn, so if you have multiple copies, you can't just add them all back, but this is a very important effect because it means that the whole engine is recurrable. You can keep doing this every single turn because your Aether Beryl is going to be coming back every single turn, because over the course of your main combo, you're naturally going to be putting a Blue-Eyes into the graveyard, which is a normal monster that satisfies this card's condition. Primite Lordly Load, the card that I said you're searching most often, is because it's also a searcher. When this card is activated, you can add 1 Primite card from your deck to your hand. which means that Aether Barrel searches the Lordly Load searches the Aether Barrel, and they both search the Drill Beam. So no matter which of these two you open, you're always going to get to all three, which is really, really nice. Only difference is whether Primite Drill Beam ends up set on your field or into your hand, because these two differ in how they get the spell and trap into rotation. But it doesn't tend to come up all that often. It will come up in one of the combos I'm showing you, but I'll explain that when I get to that combo. Regardless, this card doesn't only just add on activation, it also has a secondary effect where you can declare one normal monster name and special summon the declared normal monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard in defense position. The only caveat being that for the rest of the turn after this effect resolves, you cannot activate the effects of special summon monsters on the field. It's worded weirdly where it might imply that you couldn't have used special summon monsters previously in the turn, but that's not true. Because it's part of the effect and not part of a condition on to activate the effect, you can certainly use special summon monsters effects prior to using Lordly Load. It's just that it applies that effect after you've done the summon, and you do need to be conscious of that because there are a number of special summon monster effects you'll want to be using in this deck, and Lordly Load will shut you out of those. So using this at the end of your combo or as a way to insulate through Nibiru, which I'll talk about during the combo, are both very viable options you can do with Lordly Load. But it's just an insane extender in addition to the fact that it's a searcher. Its last effect is less relevant, but can come up for either sealing games or getting over that crucial 3,000 attack threshold, but Primite monsters and normal monsters you control gain 300 attack for each normal monster with a different name in your graveyard. That will only ever be one if you have a Blue-Eyes in there, and so you can make your Blue-Eyes White Dragons 3,300 to beat over other 3k bodies, which can come up, doesn't come up all that often. Now, even though we're only playing one of it, the MVP of the Primite engine is Primite Drill Beam. It's a quick play spell card that allows you to reveal a Primite card or a normal monster in hand, except itself, but you're only playing one, or if you control a normal monster or a level 5 or higher Primite, but we're not playing one of those, you don't have to reveal to activate this. So two conditions, either a normal or Primite in hand, or a normal Blue-Eyes on field. So if either of those are true, you can activate this card. You target a card on the field, negate its effects, and banish it. Super simple, just a searchable negation, but really, really effective because it gets around destruction protection. It's a quick play, so you can chain it to spells and traps and target those to negate them. And then additionally, it has a fantastic bonus effect where if it's in your graveyard during your main phase, you can reset it to your field if you control a Primite. This means that it can act as free discard fodder for your wishes with Eyes of Blue. You can just reset it after you've added back and normal summoned your Aether Barrel on turn 3, 5, 7. You're always going to have a negate in rotation when you have the Drill Beam and Aether Barrel engine online, which is absolutely crazy in the grind game. Most decks can't deal with this amount of recursive advantage, and that's another way you can just shut out games. If you're in a simplified game state and you have the Primite stuff online, you're probably going to be winning that game. But that is the Primite engine, compact but highly impactful. And that's all we're playing for engine stuff. So now the rest of the deck is non-engine, and we'll go through that somewhat quickly. We're playing 3 copies of Effect Veiler. Like I mentioned when we were talking about searchability, this deck specializes in searching for level 1 light tuners, which Effect Veiler happens to be, meaning that Effect Veiler is searchable throughout your main combo, sometimes in multiples. So because Effect Veiler is not once per turn, having multiple in your hand means multiple monster negations, which is very, very nice. Additionally, it is a level 1 light tuner, which means you can additionally normal summon it if you're desperate off of the Mausoleum, and it can synchro into any of your level 9 synchros with your Blue-Eyes, again, if you're in a pinch. So Effect Veiler is probably the best hand trap in the deck. Can't be said for a lot of other decks where it's played, but we're also playing plenty of other good hand traps. 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, 3 copies of Nibiru. This is a meta choice for me, but I'm main decking 3 copies of Perulia. These might be Fualoses if you have them. I don't have Fualoses, so I'm not playing them at the moment. They could be Fualoses. I do think Perulia is particularly good because I do see a decent amount of Ryziel, so Perulia is good in the Ryziel. If your local meta has a lot of Ryziel, you could justify main decking this. This could also be another hand trap slot like Ogre or something like that. I should mention the last 3 we're playing are Bestial Magnum Bestial Druid Worm, and a Call by the Grave. So 18 non-engine, an insane amount of hand traps and interruption space, alongside what tends to be an extremely oppressive 1 and 2 card combo board that you can set up. So super low investment, backed up by a ton of hand traps. Feels extremely strong, this format. I really like the deck. I think this flexibility is what I like about it most. You have 18 slots to play basically whatever you want, because the main engine's so compact and so consistent with tons of one-card interactions and combos that you can almost always put up a meaningful board, and if you can't put up the best board, you at least have a ton of non-engine hand traps to back it up and get you to that turn 3 where you can keep comboing off. But that is the main deck. It is 40 cards on the dot. And I will go ahead and jump on over to the extra deck portion where I'll take you through the extra deck. Okay, so we're ready with the extra deck, and I'm going to go ahead and start out with the best monster, in my opinion, in the extra deck, the heart and soul that this deck revolves around, and that is Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragon. We play 3 copies of it because of how important it is to all of your main combos and end boards. Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragon isn't one of the newer cards, but it has been a pivotal part of Blue-Eyes since its inception. It is a level 9 synchro, meaning it takes a Blue-Eyes plus any of your level 1 tuners that you have access to. And it says, for starters, neither player can special summon more than 2 monsters at the same time. Something you'll never be doing, so that doesn't affect you, but can shut down an opponent who's playing some sort of pendulum strategy. It can shut down any number of monster effects that are summoning 2 monsters at the same time. I know that there's a Crystron monster out there that's doing that right now. So a nice start to what is a plenty broken card, and that's not even the best part of it by far. That's probably even the worst part of Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragon is that effect. The next portion of its effect says that when your opponent activates a card or effect in the graveyard, you can quick effect negate it, which is insane. I will note none of the effects on Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragon are a hard once per turn. They're all soft once per turns. So if you can make multiple copies of this card, you can negate multiple cards in the graveyard, which is insane. And then its last effect lets you tribute it as a quick effect to special summon a light dragon synchro monster from your extra deck in defense position, except Spirit Dragon, but you destroy it during the end phase. So that effect is insane. It allows you to tag out into a ton of strong targets, the first one being the new Spirit Dragon, Blue-Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. This card also reads like a custom card. It starts by saying your opponent cannot banish cards from your graveyard, meaning that if you're able to establish Spirit Dragon on the board, your opponent can't Bestial you. Like, you can chain Spirit Dragon to their Bestial, summon the Spirit Dragon, and then this just as a condition means your opponent can't banish cards out of your graveyard. So a nice piece of added protection for your graveyard, but that's certainly not all. Additionally, when a card or effect is activated on the field, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, this card gains 1,000 attack. So not only does it negate cards on the field, which is obviously very strong, it's an Omni-negate, it also makes it beefier, hard to run over, but it's already a 3,500 4K body, so it means that it's even more deadly. And then if this card is destroyed by battle or card effects, which it would be if it was summoned by Spirit Dragon during the end phase, but also, if it's destroyed by True Light or something like that, if it's destroyed by your opponent's battle, if they somehow manage to find a way to get over this thing, then you get to special summon a light dragon from your graveyard, except itself. So that can tag back out into Spirit Dragon for an extra negate. That can tag back out into your Blue-Eyes to summon back Maiden to continue your combos. There's tons of different things you can do with the Spirit Dragon float effect, and it's just an all-around crazy, crazy card. You only play one of it, though, because you've got plenty of other great light dragon synchro targets in the extra deck. The next one we'll talk about is Lightstorm Dragon. This is a brand new card released in Supreme Darkness. It's a level 9 dragon synchro that takes a tuner and a non-tuner. So you can make this normally with your Blue-Eyes and your level 1 tuner. You can also cheat this out with this effect of Spirit Dragon. And it says that when it's special summoned, you target spells and traps on the field up to the number of normal monsters in your graveyard +1 and destroy them. So typically this is a pop 2, pop 3 of your opponent's back row. Helps the deck play into back row decks extremely well. Completely just essentially heavy storming their back row that they set can be game ending against a lot of decks. And then additionally, if it's destroyed by battle or card effects, which it will be if it's just summoned off of Spirit, you can target a spell or trap in your graveyard, reset it, but it can't be activated unless you control a normal monster, which is not hard at all to facilitate in this deck because you can summon Blue Eyes basically at will. And then our last card that is a target to summon off of Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon kind of has its own engine to go with him, so I'm going to put these off to the side. And that is Crimson Dragon. We're playing one copy of Crimson Dragon because yes, this is a light dragon synchro monster, so you can cheat it off of Spirit Dragon. And because our Spirit Dragons can tag out into a level 12 in Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon, we can use our Crimson Dragon, target our Ultimate Spirit Dragon, and summon either Cosmic Blazar Dragon, which you may have seen in Centaurion before in the past, but it's now making a comeback in Blue Eyes. It's an Omni Negate that comes back every turn because when your opponent activates a card or effect, or if they would summon a monster, so it's also a solemn warning on the field as well. You can negate the activation or the summon, and if you do destroy that card, but you banish this card until the end phase to do so. So it comes back in your end phase, and you have a 4K body that's also an Omni Negate every single turn, coming back and just making it impossible for your opponent to play. I don't think I've ever lost once I've gotten into the position where Crimson Dragon is tagged out and I have Blazar and Ultimate Spirit Dragon on the field. And that's super easy to set up. All you need is 2 Spirit Dragons, because you would go Spirit Dragon, tag out for Ultimate Spirit Dragon, second Spirit Dragon, tag out for Crimson Dragon, tag back out into Cosmic Blazar Dragon, and now you're off to the races. And then the other one to talk about is Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon. This is another option to go into instead of the Cosmic Blazar. And it acts similar, but it has its unique differences. Instead of being an Omni Negate, it is only a monster effect negation, which sounds a lot worse. But the main benefits of Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon is, as a blanket effect, while it's on the field, the first time each of your cards would be destroyed by a card effect each turn, they're not. This is a really nice piece of protection for True Light. If your opponent tries to out it with some sort of back row removal that would have destroyed True Light, you can summon Cipher Divine in response off of like a Crimson Spirit Dragon line of some sort. And then it just means that you're protected. Super nice in certain matchups, obviously against something like Ryziel, having all that destruction protection can be game winning. And then additionally, the monster effect is really, really nice to have on top of it. But those are the synchros. It's a pretty hefty synchro package, but I think the deck is designed to be a synchro deck. We'll go ahead and move on to the Link monsters, starting with the newest and most impactful of the Link monsters that we play. We play 2 copies of the new Spirit with Eyes of Blue. It's a Link 1 Dragon effect monster that requires either a level 4 or lower dragon or spellcaster monster, meaning that any of your tuners, even your Effect Veiler, your Primite Aether Beryl Dragon, can all just link into this as a Link 1, which is crazy. On summon, it gets to add Mausoleum of White from your deck to your hand, so highly, highly searchable. Like I mentioned when we were talking about Mausoleum, but gets you to your field spell and all of your main combos. And then additionally, you can send this card from the field to the graveyard to then, not even send it from the field to the graveyard. You can just tribute it to special summon a Blue Eyes monster from your hand or graveyard. The caveat being that if you summoned a non-vanilla monster, that you would have to negate its effects and it can't attack. But since you're almost always just summoning back the OG Blue Eyes, none of those restrictions come into play. So not only is it a searcher for your field spell, it's also another way to cheat Blue Eyes onto the field, which in combination with Maiden or your Sage with Eyes of Blue that you already have on field means represents a rank 9 on its own, which is absolutely crazy. Just an insanely powerful card. 2 definitely comes up in the main combo. So definitely play 2. I'd even consider playing 3, but we don't quite have the extra deck space for it, so 2 feels about right. We're on the other Link monster that we're playing is 1 copy of Heretic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. While most boards combo through and make the Spirit Dragon board that we were talking about, there are some hands that are forced to end on Heretic Seal Pass, particularly if you only have the Primite cards, they can really only get to Heretic Seal. But you can use Heretic Seal, tribute it to bounce a card on your opponent's field on their turn, which is obviously nothing to shake a stick at. That's pretty good. And then additionally, when it's tributed, even by its own effect, which is frequently how you're going to trigger it, you get to summon a dragon for deck. So that can be Magnamut to search for like a Blue-Eyes or a Druis Worm or another form of interruption, which is really nice. And it also can summon your Blue-Eyes to turn on your Drill Beam, which comes up in that Primite line, which is nice. So a definitely impactful card that you can't cut to 0, but I felt that 1 feels about right. You don't need more than 1. And those are all the links we're playing. We're playing a couple of fusions here now. We're on 2 copies of Blue-Eyes Tyrant Dragon. This is a card that I alluded to earlier. It is a fusion that requires Blue-Eyes White Dragon and any dragon monster, so super easy to facilitate, whether that's with Beryl or another copy of Blue-Eyes or whatnot. Additionally, you can also just special summon it from your extra deck by tributing a Blue-Eyes White Dragon equipped with a fusion monster, which via Wishes with Eyes of Blue is trivial to make during your main combo. And it has a couple of relevant effects. The first of which is it's unaffected by trap cards and their effects, which is nice to play through a board of back row. Additionally, it can attack all monsters your opponent controls each, which on a 34 body can be game-ending. It can just win you the game if you can swing out enough small monsters. And then once per turn, at the end of the damage step, if it attacks, you can reset a trap card, which can reset your Imperm. It can reset your True Light if it somehow got in the graveyard and you don't have Maiden in rotation. It can reset your Blue-Eyes trap card to pop more cards on subsequent turns. Just an absolute MVP. I play 2 because 1, it helps in the grind game to have the second one to clear out boards more frequently. And secondly, because we're only playing the 1 copy of Neo Blue-Eyes Ultimate, there are scenarios where you'll have already used this to be targeting protection in your graveyard, and then you won't have a way to get your second wishes to equip a fusion to then summon another Tyrant Dragon. So playing the second one is nice, and I've found that it helps me in certain grindy matchups. But moving on, we'll talk about Neo Blue-Eyes Ultimate Dragon. It's a very wordy card, but I can simplify it for you real easy. You can ignore all of the other lines of text except for the last effect on it, because we're never summoning this thing. We don't have 3 Blue-Eyes White Dragons even in our deck if we wanted to make this. So instead, we'll focus on its graveyard effect, which says that when a card or effect is activated that targets a Blue-Eyes monster you control, you can quick effect banish this from your card graveyard, negate the activation, and destroy it. So it's targeting protection for your Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragon, which is your main end board. It's free to put it in the graveyard, essentially, because you use Wishes during your main combo, so you'll always have a way to equip it to Blue-Eyes, and then just synchro the Blue-Eyes off to make Ultimate Dragon. And then additionally, not only does it help with your Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragon, but also Blue-Eyes Tyrant Dragon can't be targeted anymore once you've made it with this. So just super, super strong. Another layer on the end board that's already extremely layered, and it feels really, really nice. The last slot in the extra deck is very variable. I've seen people play Typhon. I've seen people play a second Spheres. I've seen people play some rank 8s, which is what I'm doing. I'm playing the one of Indigo Eyes Silver Dragon. This is in here partially because it's a pretty interesting rank 8. This is a new card that was released in the structure deck that allows you to detach a material to revive a normal monster and give it 1,000 attack. This also has 4,000 attack, so on an empty board state, this is OTK by itself, because you'll have 2 4K bodies swinging directly. Additionally, when it's summoned, it negates the effects of all face-up cards on the field. So going second, if you can get 2 8s onto the board, this can help you shut down your opponent's floodgates or your opponent's problematic monsters. Like if they let this get on the board, it's really hard for them to deal with. And then last but not least, I've been experimenting with Ultimate Slayer in the side deck for Ryzeal, and so having an Xyz just feels nice as a way to send it. It doesn't have any relevant graveyard effects, so maybe play something like Meteorologic, or maybe even another utility rank 8 like Hope Harbinger can also be nice, but I just wanted to experiment it to see how it feels. It feels fine. I don't think I would necessarily cut it yet, but this is probably the one card in the extra deck that is most on the chopping block for me. But yeah, that's the deck as it stands. And without further ado, I'm going to jump into the combo tutorial so I can show you how to actually play the deck. Alrighty, so we're going to be showing you off 2 combos today. The first of which is going to be the Sage with Eyes of Blue combo. It's actually Sage with Eyes of Blue with 1 discard. So we're going to go ahead and just add Mulch Army Perulia from deck to hand, just so that it's true blank, doesn't do anything for us. We won't interact with it. It's essentially just an extra card to have in hand, but you do need a discard to make this whole thing work. So without further ado, starting off, you're going to go ahead and normal summon that Sage with Eyes of Blue from your hand. And that's going to go ahead and activate to add a level 1 light tuner from your deck to your hand. So we're going to go ahead and add ourselves a copy of Maiden of White. Next, we can go ahead and link off our Sage with Eyes of Blue in order to make our Spirit with Eyes of Blue, our new link one. And its effect is going to trigger to search for Mausoleum of White. Next, we're going to go ahead and activate that Maiden of White that we have in hand. We're going to go ahead and discard it from our hand to the graveyard and search for our place face up in our spell and trap zone our copy of True Light. So I'll move our hand slightly further back so you can get into what's going on. And so this is face up. We'll go ahead and get to activate its effect. We can place from our deck, set from our deck a blue spell or trap that mentions Blue-Eyes White Dragon that's not among our cards face up on the field or in graveyard. So that can be Wishes for Eyes of Blue. We'll then go ahead and activate that Wishes for Eyes of Blue, discarding that blank card that we needed to have in hand, and search for a level 1 Light Tuner and Spell Trap. So that level 1 Light Tuner is going to be yet another copy of Sage with Eyes of Blue, and that Spell Trap is going to be a copy of Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragons. From this position, we can go ahead and activate our Mausoleum of White. And with the effect of Mausoleum of White, again, it doesn't activate, but we just get to normal summon again a Sage with Eyes of Blue. And its on normal summon search effect is not once per turn, so we'll go ahead and activate Sage again to search for a level 1 Light Tuner. This time, we'll go ahead and add Effect Failure. We'll then go ahead and finally activate an effect of Mausoleum of White, targeting our Sage with Eyes of Blue, to send a normal monster from deck to the graveyard and temporarily boost its stats. That's going to be a copy of our OG Blue-Eyes White Dragon. Then from this position, we'll go ahead and activate our Spirit with Eyes of Blue, tributing itself to revive our Blue-Eyes White Dragon from our graveyard. That's a level 8 Blue-Eyes monster and a tuner, who's level 1, so that goes into our level 9 Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragon. I like to put him in defense mode, 1 to play around something like Lightning Storm, but 2 to also, it has a larger defense points than it does attack, so that can be nice. And interestingly enough, in this position, we're just going to pass. So you might ask, well, why did you search Roar of the Blue-Eyed White Dragons? Why did you search Effect Veiler? I mean, what's going on here? So let me go ahead and explain a couple of things here. So first off, the reason that we're not extending with Roar with Eyes of Blue, the Blue-Eyed White Dragons, is because we're playing around Nibiru here. We've already hit 5 summons, and because of that, if our opponent tries to Nibiru us at this point, we're totally fine with that. We say, okay, they tribute our Spirit Dragon, they give us a token, they give us Blue Eyes, we're fine with that. We can then, in that position, activate Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragons, summon another Blue Eyes from our deck, and then you might notice that we hadn't triggered our Maiden with White, so we can go ahead and use that at that point, summon it back, and now we've got a level 8 and a 1 on board again, and we just make another copy of Spirit Dragon. That's one way. That's one reason why we did that. So that plays around Nibiru, but it's also in its own just a really powerful piece of the end board. So I'll go ahead and unwind that. We'll put the extra Blue Eyes back in deck. Put the extra Spirit back in deck. This is back in hand. And one thing I forgot to mention that is very important. It's something that I'm working on remembering. But at the point in your combo before you make Spirit Dragon, so we'll go ahead and put him back in the extra deck. Our Sage was on board, our Blue Eyes was on board from our Spirit Dragon summon. At this point in the combo, you'll want to remember to use your Wishes for Eyes of Blue effect, something that I am still trying to keep remembering. I mentioned that twice now, but I want to keep saying it for myself so I remember. But you can banish it from your graveyard at this point, targeting your Blue-Eyes White Dragon, and then you equip it with the Neo Blue-Eyes Ultimate Dragon. It is at that point that then you go ahead and synchro them off into your Spirit Dragon. So you may ask, well, okay, if you're not going to extend through Nibiru, what does this board actually mean? Because what are we passing on here? It's just one monster. What can that possibly do for us? Well, it is a monster negation in Effect Veiler that we've searched. It is a graveyard negation in Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragon. Notably, that Spirit Dragon cannot be targeted with something like an Imperm because we have the Ultimate Dragon in graveyard to negate it. We have a Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragon tag out, so after you've negated their graveyard effect, you can go ahead and tribute it at quick effect speed to go ahead and summon a Blue-Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon from our extra deck, which is an Omni-negate for onboard effects. And then last but not least, True Light not only represents an extra body if we need to block an attack by summoning back a Blue Eyes to save ourselves, which would then also summon back our Maiden with Eyes or Maiden of White for additional attack protection, because our Maiden of White would also then, if it was attacked, get to summon back like a Sage or something like that. But in addition to all that, if your opponent can't break through your multiple points of interaction, you can also use True Light to set any of your additional spell traps that you want. So that can be another copy of Wishes because we banished it from our graveyard. That could be a copy of the trap to pop whatever back row your opponent had set. There's just a number of different options you can go for in this deck. And I think that it's worth playing around Nibiru in a format where a number of people are on Nibiru, where you have enough interruption, especially that was all off of one card. So you have 4 other cards in hand, which could be hand trap, or I guess 3 other cards in hand because you needed to discard. So those could be extra hand traps. If those were any of the pieces that you've searched, you could have searched for more copies of, let's say, Effect Veiler or something like that. It tends to be just a lot of pieces of interruption that it's really hard for your opponent to play with. And it can just end games on its own. So that's the board that I recommend you stop on, because if you play into Nibiru and get blown out by it, then there's just there is recovery options on the following turns, but you're likely not getting those following turns because you won't have any meaningful interaction left, because the Spirit Dragon represents both negation, at least 2 pieces of negation, and follow-up because the Spirit Dragon can float back into the Spirit Dragon, which is really, really nice. Alright, so setting up for the second combo, this combo is just Primite Dragon Aether Beryl and Maiden of White. And it is kind of the bread and butter ideal combo that you want to go for in the deck to set up its full insane end board. There are a lot of different variations. This can be Lordly Load, this could be Sage, but it does make the lines a bit awkward. This is like the ideal 2 to start with, but again, you have options, you have flexibility. The deck has so many starters and extenders that there are many ways to play, but this is a pretty simple one that you'll want to have in your pocket. So we'll go ahead and start by normal summoning our Aether Beryl. And on summon, Aether Beryl is going to get to set a Primite spell or trap from our deck. So that's going to go ahead and set our copy of Lordly Load. We'll then get the chance to activate our Lordly Load and search our deck for a copy of Primite Drillbeam. So that's already one interaction that we've searched so far. Next, we're going to go ahead and activate our Maiden of White. This sequencing is important because we want to make sure that our Aether Beryl is on the field for this. Well, we'll go ahead and place a True Light face up in our spell and trap zone. And then we'll go ahead and activate that True Light to place or set a Blue Eyes spell trap. That's going to be our Wishes for Eyes of Blue. In this position, we can go ahead and activate Wishes for Eyes of Blue, discarding our Drill Beam that we searched, to go ahead and add a level 1 Light Tuner and a spell or trap that mentions Blue Eyes from our deck to our hand. So we'll go ahead and add Sage with Eyes of Blue and Majesty of the White Dragons. And then because we control a Primite monster, we're going to go ahead and activate our Drill Beam effect in Graveyard to reset itself to the field. I'm going to keep it face up so you can know that it's there, but just know that this is set. These two are still face up. But from this position, we can go ahead and take our Aether Beryl and link it off for our copy of Spirit with Eyes of Blue. Our Spirit with Eyes of Blue is going to go ahead and get the chance to search for our copy of Mausoleum of White. We can then go ahead and activate our Mausoleum of White. And before we use its effect to dump, we'll want to use our additional normal summon so we don't leave ourselves vulnerable to Ghost Ogre on that. We'll go ahead and normal summon our Sage with Eyes of Blue and use its effect to search. That's going to add an effect Veiler from deck to hand. And then we can go ahead and activate our Spirit with Eyes of Blue, attributing itself... Oh, sorry, we skipped a step. We need to go ahead and activate our Mausoleum of White, targeting our Sage, to get our Blue Eyes into rotation. I was jumping the gun there. So send the Blue Eyes from deck to graveyard, modulate the attack and defense. Again, not relevant outside of getting the Blue Eyes into rotation. But then use that Spirit with Eyes of Blue, special summon back the Blue Eyes. I know this copy's pretty banged up. These were my OG copies of Blue Eyes I played with when I was a kid. It felt too good not to just put these in the deck and play around with them one more time while this deck's relevant again. So apologies for the state that they're in, but younger me didn't see the value of keeping these cards in any sort of good condition. But then we'll go ahead and synchro these off. Oh, no, hold on. I'm going to remember this time. I'm going to remember before I formally commit to the synchro summon. We're going to go ahead and activate our Wishes effect in the graveyard. Banish the Wishes to go ahead and equip to our Blue Eyes a fusion monster, which is going to be the Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Now we're in a position where we can go ahead and synchro them off for the Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. We can then go ahead and set our Majesty of White Dragons, and this is the end board. Looks very similar to the previous end board, but it's actually significantly more nuanced and layered. So, for starters, did we play around Nibiru again? Yes, we did. We did not need the Roar with Eyes of Blue, because if our opponent Nibiru's us here, which again they can, we've gone over 5 summons, it'll still tribute our Spirit Dragon, that's fine. But then we can go Lordly Load, activate its effect to go ahead and special summon a Blue Eyes from our deck. We declare Blue Eyes White Dragon, and that special summons out a Blue Eyes from deck. And then while we can't use special summon monsters in the field, we can certainly activate effects that special summon in the graveyard, which again, we haven't used our Maiden, so Maiden can come back, and then we still get the sync into our second copy of Spirit Dragon, and it's like they never Nibiru'd us. But I'll unwind that so that way we can see what we passed on. So this is still in our graveyard. This goes back into our deck. This is on our field. And it's still a ton of interaction. So again, this was off of 2 cards, so there's 3 other cards in hand. Could be hand traps, could be extra stuff. Again, a lot of what you can search throughout your main combo can pivot into Effect Veiler if you already have the piece in hand. So searching extra copies of Effect Veiler, never a bad idea. But we have still the 2 interactions off of Spirit Dragon, the negate and the tag out into the ultimate. We have Effect Veiler for the monster negation. We still have that targeting protection we talked about in Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. But what we gain on top of that is 2 things. So, or sorry, yeah, I guess two and a half things. So with True Light here, we're almost always going to be summoning back Blue Eyes on our opponent's turn. That's not only because we want to get Blue Eyes into rotation just in general, and that can also trigger our Maiden for an extra body block on board. But we can also turn on our Primite Drill Beam because we would now control a normal monster, and then this now becomes an on-field Omni Negate. We can quick effect target a card on the field, negate it, banish it. So super nice. Additionally, our Majesty of the White Dragons can reveal that Blue Eyes that's either on our field or in our graveyard if we needed to use it before we use True Light. And that can destroy a card on the field, non-targeting, which is really, really nice. And on our follow-up turn, we have a Primite Dragon Aether Beryl in the graveyard. So during our standby phase of the next turn, once it gets passed back to us, because realistically they're not playing through all this, we get to add back the Aether Beryl to hand. Even if our Primite Drill Beam's in graveyard, when we normal summon the Aether Beryl to continue our combo, the Drill Beam can just reset itself, and we've got another Omni Negate every single turn, which is absolutely bonkers. But yeah, that's the simple Blue Eyes combos. The Primite stuff fits in extremely nicely with the deck. I think that overall, Blue Eyes is in a pretty strong position this format. It's got a lot of nuanced layered interaction that is important against a lot of decks. I think that the fact that it can play 18 non-engine and be so flexible, you can side out all those hand traps for insanely good board breakers in your side deck, or niche side cards like Lancia for stuff against Malice, stuff like that. It's in a really good spot. At the same time, a lot of what people are playing in the meta does beat Blue Eyes pretty hard as well. The Bystials, for example, that Malice are all playing, and likely now I imagine that Ryziel and other decks are going to be teching in more and more so because a Bystial can shut down some of your Blue Eyes plays if they're used in the right spots. Obviously, if they let you get to the ultimate Spirit Dragon, the Bystials are shut off, but a lot of times an impactful Bystial can come down beforehand. And then, at the same time, I mean, I think that while it does put up a lot of interaction, some of that interaction can be over monster interaction heavy. But I do think it's pretty layered, and in all honesty, I think that that is something that it has as an advantage over the other top decks at the moment. Like, a lot of Ryziel's interaction is set up in their detonator a lot of the times, whereas outing just one thing in Blue Eyes doesn't really like save you anything. Like there's not one card in Blue Eyes you can really take out and then win from there, in my opinion. So I think that it's in a good spot. If you have any questions about any other combos you'd like to see, let me know down in the comments. If you have any questions about card choices, if you want to debate any of my ratios or hand trap choices, feel free to also talk about those in the comments. I read every single comment. If you want to see more content like this, go ahead and like the video. I've got plenty of other deck profiles and other pieces of Yu-Gi-Oh! Content already on my channel, so why don't you go ahead and check those out as well. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel while you're at it so you don't miss any future Blue Eyes or Yu-Gi-Oh! Content in general. But without further ado, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!